Spike Spiegel, a bounty hunter, and his partner Jet Black head to the Tijuana asteroid colony on their ship, the Bebop, to track down a bounty head named Asimov Solensen. Asimov, also known as the Red-Eyed Coyote, is wanted for killing members of his own crime syndicate and stealing a cache of a dangerous combat drug known as Bloody Eye. On the colony, Asimov and his girlfriend, Katerina, are ambushed at a bar by his former syndicate while attempting to sell a vial of Bloody Eye, but Asimov fights his way out by using the drug himself. Spike later encounters Katerina and reveals to her that he is a bounty hunter searching for Asimov. Spike is assaulted by Asimov and nearly killed before Katerina intervenes. In the confusion, Spike steals Asimov's Bloody Eye vial before the two leave. Spike later confronts Asimov at a staged drug deal with the stolen vial. Asimov escapes with Katerina in a ship when the two are interrupted by an attack from the syndicate. With Spike giving chase in his own ship, Asimov takes another dose of Bloody Eye as they rush towards a police blockade. Katerina, realizing they will never escape, shoots Asimov as Spike nears their ship. As Spike approaches Asimov's ship, it is destroyed by attacking police cruisers, forcing Spike to pull away. A bounty takes Spike and Jet to Mars, where their target, Abdul Hakim, is wanted for stealing a valuable lab animal. To avoid capture, Hakim has had plastic surgery to change his appearance. At a bar, Hakim's briefcase containing the animal is stolen. Spike discovers the thief attempting to sell the animal at a pet store and, assuming him to be Hakim, holds him at gunpoint. The case contains a Welsh corgi. As Spike leaves the store, Hakim attempts to take the dog back, but it escapes, prompting Hakim, Spike, and the group of scientists who had illegally experimented on the dog to give chase. Spike loses Hakim but gains possession of the dog. Jet puts a collar with a tracking device on the dog so he can pinpoint Hakim's location once he steals the dog back. Spike takes the dog for a walk in order to flush out Hakim. The scientists activate a dog whistle to find their data dog, resulting in the corgi escaping from Spike. All the dogs in the city, including the corgi, chase after the scientists' truck, attracting Hakim's notice. Hakim steals a car, pursues, and grabs the dog, while Spike and the scientists pursue him. The dog is able to manipulate the car door and jumps out. Spike reluctantly lets Hakim go in order to save the dog by catching it with his ship. The scientists use a harpoon on the truck to shoot Hakim's vehicle, causing both to lose control and crash over the side rails of a bridge and onto a police station, where they are apprehended. The bounty hunter show, Big Shot, announces that Hakim has turned himself in and provide more information on the data dog, which has a genetically enhanced intellect. Jet decides to bring the dog, which he names Ein, to live on the Bebop, much to Spike's chagrin. The crew of the Bebop head to a space station casino to try and make some money. Spike is told not to bring too much attention to himself by winning too much, but attention comes anyway when he accidentally mixes two poker chips, one with a microchip hidden inside meant for an illegal sale. Faye Valentine, a wanted fugitive drowning in debt, gets captured by Jet and Spike but manages to escape the watchful eye of Ein. Though they lost one of their ships and the woman with the large bounty on her head, they narrowly avoided a double-cross murder attempt with the dealer who wanted the microchip. After gambling away all the money she obtained, Faye finds a mysterious suitcase aboard a derelict spaceship. Meanwhile, Spike and Jet bump into Twinkle Maria Murdoch, leader of the Space Warriors, a group of eco-terrorists armed with a biological weapon called Monkey Business, a virus that can transform humans into apes. Faced with the threat by Murdoch's followers to release the virus on heavily populated Ganymede if she isn't released, the Ganymede government cancels the bounty and forces the Bebop crew to let her go. When Murdoch and her men renege on the deal and launch the virus anyway, Spike and Faye pursue her through the hyperspace gateway. They destroy 2 of the 3 virus-laden missiles, but miss the third, prompting the Ganymede government to shut down the space gate, stopping the missile by trapping it in hyperspace. Spike and Faye narrowly escape the gate before it closes, but Murdoch and her followers are trapped. A container of the virus that Faye recovered from the suitcase and was subsequently slipped into Murdoch's pocket by Spike shatters, turning her and all her sons into monkeys. With the bounty lost, Faye decides to stay on the Bebop with Spike and Jet. Rivals of 2 Martian crime syndicates form a truce that is interrupted when a man named Vicious comes in with henchmen to kill them all. Spike has past ties to one of the aforementioned crime syndicates, the Red Dragon, but refuses to explain further to a frustrated Jet, who likewise has his own past regarding his prosthetic arm that he refuses to divulge. Spike tries to get information from an old contact named Annie, who had thought him dead for years. Returning to the Bebop for enough ammo to pay back a debt and face off against Vicious, Spike gets a video message revealing Faye had been captured by Vicious after trying to go after a bounty on the Red Dragon crime boss, whom Vicious had already killed. An impressive fight at a cathedral results in Spike being flung out a window, seeing his past life flash before his eyes, but ultimately surviving with Faye beside him back on the Bebop. With the food situation scarce, thanks to a hungry Faye, Jet and Spike are eager to nab another bounty named Giraffe. There's a chase, with Jet offering some distraction for Spike to pursue Giraffe to a hotel, but Spike fails to save his bounty, who gets shot and falls out a window. Before dying, Giraffe gives Spike a ring and urges him not to be fooled by the way he looks. Jet learns from an old bounty hunter friend that Giraffe was friends with someone named Zebra, who supposedly had a child. It's soon discovered this child has not aged for over 30 years due to a hyperspace singularity event when an astral gate exploded and destroyed the rest of his planet. The child can never die or age unless exposed to the stone on the ring, which was formed from the same hyperspace energy. Spike fashions the stone into a bullet and finally manages to break the unaging curse with a single shot between the ageless boy's eyes. The crew of the Bebop split up to look for a bounty named Decker with a dragon tattoo on his arm. Spike nurses a hangover and looks for him at a bar, but inadvertently finds himself helping a cargo hauler pilot named VT take down a trio of hunters who were harassing a waitress. Spike soon gets outed as a bounty hunter himself, earning VT's disgust. Meanwhile, Faye is in a family-friendly restaurant where Decker ends up going to, but he quickly escapes after a tattoo ID mix-up by Faye. VT reluctantly helps out Spike and Faye, but they all get trapped in an asteroid mine, barely surviving an explosion that kills their bounty. Using the illegal explosives Decker had in his ship, they make it out. Spike recognizes VT as the wife of an old bounty hunter, now deceased, but declines the money she had amassed from a long-running bet where the winner would get the pot if they guessed her name. 3 ship hijackers on their way to Venus get intercepted by the Bebop crew and the bounty is collected. A man named Rocco, carrying a wrapped package, spots Spike and tries to rush at him. Rocco is impressed when he gets knocked down and asks for Spike's mentoring and knowledge on how to fight better. Spike reluctantly teaches him to be more fluid in his fighting, and after a sudden face-off with some gang members, Rocco gives him the package to take care of until they can meet again the next day. At the Bebop, they find out the package contains a rare plant that can cure Venus sickness. Faye wants to sell it, but Jet thinks it's too dangerous to sell something so recently stolen. Spike finds out Rocco stole the plant to sell and pay for surgery to restore his sister's eyesight. The gang he stole from come after him, and after an intense gunfight where Rocco manages to successfully implement a move he learned from Spike, both the rare flower and Rocco die. Luckily, a few seeds were hidden away in a music box that Rocco's sister kept, and thus, even in death, he was able to help her get the surgery. A ravaged South America has been getting animals lasered onto its surface, but no one seems to know why. The Bebop crew only get interested when they hear there's a bounty on the supposed hacker that must have gained access to the satellite doing the lasering. Interviews of the Earth citizens keep bringing up an elite computer hacker nicknamed Radical Edward, but there's no general consensus on what this radical hacker looks like or where they could be. What no one knows is that the satellite graffiti was being caused by a lonely AI. And the hacker, Ed, is actually a young girl. Radical Ed hacks into the Bebop systems and makes a deal with Faye. She'll help them collect the bounty if they let her join their team. In the end, the bounty is rescinded because there was no hacker that caused the AI to activate its lasers, but Radical Ed joins the Bebop ship whether they want her to or not, thanks to her shaky control of their computer navigation system. Jet is even more taciturn than usual as the Bebop lands on Ganymede, his last post before leaving the ISSP, Intersolar System Police. He visits his ex-girlfriend, Elisa, at her bar. She is planning to leave with her boyfriend, Rint, since the bar is going to be foreclosed and she has several debts. Jet holds no animosity towards Elisa, but wants to know why she left him with just a pocket watch and a note that said farewell. She brushes him off, offering platitudes, and doesn't explain until the end. After Spike gets a tip about a bounty on the head of Elisa's boyfriend, Jet tells him to leave it, vowing he won't let them escape as he used to be the type of cop who never let things go. He corners them both, and Elisa says her boyfriend only has a bounty on his head because he killed a man trying to come after her for debt money. She finally tells Jet she broke up with him because she never got a chance to make her own choices or mistakes. Although Rint does get arrested, Jet thinks he may get out on self-defense charges. As Jet leaves his planet and his former love, he tosses the broken pocket watch, heeding Elisa's words that time does not stand still, and so he moves on. What starts as a normal day with no bounty hunting turns into a scene of terror when a blob with a venomous bite infiltrates the Bebop. Jet is the first to get bitten when he goes into attic section of their ship and finds an old refrigerator. With a terribly stocked first aid kit, Jet gets worse, and after trying to rule out what the virus or creature could be, Faye gets attacked in the bath. Spike and Ed quickly suit up with heat-seeking goggles, but Ein, who had noticed and barked at the Crow since the beginning, is the next to get attacked. Giggling Ed is no help, so it's down to Spike, who realizes the creature sort of evolved from a rare Ganymede lobster he stowed away in the attic fridge for over a year. He uses the airlock to blast out the rotting contents of the fridge and the mutated blob creature. He still gets bit and joins his fellow crew in recovery. The only one who managed to avoid attack was Ed, who ate the blob in a sleepy stupor. Faye cleans out the crew's safe and leaves the Bebop for Callisto. Jet and Spike get into an argument when Jet wants to look for Faye and get their money back, but Spike wants to follow up on a clue for the location of his old girlfriend, Julia. Another person from Spike's past, Vicious, ends up on Callisto, trying to carry out a deal of a large cache of bloody eye from a mysterious seller. Faye gets the attention of jazz saxophonist, Gren, while at a jazz bar and ends getting saved by him when she gets jumped by some men in an alley. Though initially brusque, Faye warms up to Gren and they talk about loneliness. After seeing photos of Gren and Vicious together on the wall, Faye draws a gun on Gren in the shower and is shocked to see Gren has breasts. Spike manages to find Vicious, angry that he used Julia's name for the bloody eye deal, thus making his search for her a waste of time. He aims a gun at Vicious, but Lynn, someone Spike knew in his younger years at the Red Dragon Syndicate, steps in to bodily protect Vicious. Spike's hesitation results in Lynn shooting him, leaving Spike's fallen body in the snow. Gren tells Faye about his connection to Vicious. They had served together as soldiers on a planetary war where Gren looked up to him and considered him a comrade. He was then betrayed by Vicious and incarcerated, experimented on, and ultimately the hormonal experimentation left him Gren with female attributes. He is the red-eye dealer who requested Vicious to get information and closure. He handcuffs Faye after she tries another attack, and Jet, who had been questioning people the previous episode, eventually finds her. Once again, Spike's past life flashes before his eyes, with memories of wanting to leave the syndicate with Julia and killing people alongside Vicious. He wakes up, realizing he was shot with a tranquilizer, and he heads off to find Vicious. Vicious double-crosses Gren and Lynn dies taking a bullet for Vicious. Spike and Gren chase after Vicious in their small ships. Gren, however, planted an explosive in the red-eye bag, which nearly takes down Vicious, but is ultimately unsuccessful. Spike learns a little more about Julia from Gren, before taking Gren to Titan, fulfilling the soldier's dying wish. Spike returns to the Bebop, exchanging few words but ultimately reconciling with Jet. There's a large bounty on the head of the mastermind behind several Astral Gate robberies, drawing in several bounty hunters, including the Bebop crew. After Spike, Jet, and Faye pull their information together, they find the only thing their crooks had in common was receiving a chess piece each. Ed reveals the chess piece has a microchip and plays a virtual game of chess with someone who is soon discovered to be the chess master Hex. Jet finds out the person who coordinated those robberies was a genius programmer who used to work for the Astral Gate company and got fired for pointing out defects. The Bebop crew manage to trace him to a junkyard, and they're tailed by a bounty hunter who almost kills the chess master Hex. It turned out the genius programmer had pre-programmed his revenge plan 50 years ago and went senile in his old age. He is left by the Bebop crew to enjoy his last virtual chess game with Ed. While cleaning after Ein, Faye relates the story of her past. She was cryogenically frozen after being critically injured in an explosion. She stayed in cryogenic sleep for 54 years until she was healed and awoke to no memory of what happened and over 300 million in medical debt. A man named Whitney, claiming to be an insurance lawyer, explained what happened and brings her back when she runs away, horrified over not being able to pay. She falls for Whitney, but after getting pursued by a collection agency, he gets caught in an explosion. After his apparent death, she found herself the sole heir of his debts, and it soon become apparent he's a con man. Jet captures the small bounty on his head, not realizing his connection to Faye, though Spike knows since he overheard her story. Faye ends up busting Whitney out and nearly escapes with him until she finds out he had lied about several other things, including her real name. She ultimately turns him over for the bounty, and despite still being uncertain of her past, Spike tells her that her future is what counts. Jet's former partner, Fad, calls him to ask for help locating a prison inmate who led a prison riot on a prison ship and commandeered it. The man, Uday Taksim, is responsible for Jet losing his arm. Jet leaves the Bebop and joins Fad on a search where he tracks Uday to Europa and goes into the heavily armed ship alone. He takes several hits, but manages to come face to face with Uday, and after a fight it's revealed that Jet's partner was a crooked cop who worked for their syndicate, and fired the bullet that took out Jet's arm. Fad shoots Uday and doesn't deny the accusation, before pulling out a gun and firing at Jet. Luckily, an injured Jet manages to shoot him first, and finding no bullets in Fad's gun except for one shell from shooting Uday, Jet offers his dying partner one last cigarette before limping away. With no food or fuel left, the Bebop is sideswiped in a hit and run and make a crash landing. Ed and Ein are sent to look for food while the men try to repair the ship. Ed and Ein manage to stow away in the trunk of a woman's car, and they get caught in the middle of a gunfight between Domino Walker, a hallucinogenic mushroom dealer, and Shaft, the vengeance-seeking brother of a man who died after eating those mushrooms. Ed gets some of the mushrooms and takes them back to the ship, where she leaves them out for the rest of the crew to eat. She determines they were not good mushrooms and goes after the bounty on Domino after seeing a report about him on Big Shot. And train chase involving the woman from before, the vengeance-seeking brother, the confused mushroom dealer, and Ed and Ein end with a cow on the tracks and a bag of mushrooms given to Ein in exchange for not being taken to jail. Unfortunately, they were not the valuable hallucinogenic kind, they were regular shiitake kind. While Faye wastes money betting on horse racing, a package addressed to her arrives on the Bebop containing an old Betamax tape, prompting Spike and Jet to look for an appropriate device to view its contents. After wrecking a Betamax player at an antiques shop and stealing the wrong player from an underground city, the two get a follow-up delivery with the appropriate video player. The tape proves to be a time capsule recording made by a hopeful, encouraging teenage Faye, but Faye finds her pre-amnesia self unrecognizable. Spike takes his monoracer to Earth for maintenance with trusted mechanic, Dewin. An excitable baseball fan, Miles, is his relatively new assistant. Jet and Faye go after a group of pirates who evade capture by transferring computer viruses to the Bebop and their smaller pod ships via grappling hooks. Spike soon joins them in trying to find the hacker hijackers. Spike chases after the hackers and gets the virus shot into his ship's system. He attempted to override the computers and fly the monoracer manually, but just when it seemed like he was going to crash, Dewin and Miles came to rescue in a rebuilt, restored NASA shuttle. A group of men get gunned down by a grinning, maniacal killer named Mad Pierrot. Spike stumbles upon this crime scene after a round of billiards nearby, and he narrowly escapes with his life. Jet contacts an old ISSP buddy of his to get more info on the Mad Pierrot, a man who survived brutal experimentation, in an effort to make him a form of super soldier, and sought out revenge from those who tortured him. No one who has ever seen him survived, and Spike, despite being wounded, accepts an emailed invitation from the Mad Pierrot to meet at a space-themed amusement park. Spike runs around various attractions, including a penguin-themed snow scene, a massive roller coaster, and ends on a shootout on the main square where a giant parade of animatronics are due to pass through. Mad Pierre gets a shot off on Spike, but he gets one back, and the mentally deteriorated Pierre cries out in pain, falls down, and gets trampled by the parade. Jet, spurred on by a cryptic email, tries to find an old acquaintance but discovers only his grave on Mars. A girl appears and saves him from being shot by mysterious assassins at the cemetery. The girl turns out to be his acquaintance's estranged daughter, Mayafei, an expert in feng shui. She believes that her father sending her the email before his disappearance means he could be alive, and she asks Jet's help in finding a sunstone that can lead them to her father's location. The sunstone turns out to be a moon rock that was blown off as a result of an astral gate accident. They find her father trapped in a hyperspace stream inside an astral gate, and by concentrating power on the sunstone, Faye and her father are able to have one last talk before he dies. A terrorist known as the Teddy Bomber has been using explosives hidden in teddy bears to bring down high-rise buildings in protest of humanity's excesses. Spike's first attempt to stop him is interrupted by a bounty hunter on a horse known as Cowboy Andy. Their skirmish leads to the Teddy Bomber escaping. Initially, Jet and Faye don't believe Spike, but Ed finds Cowboy Andy online and reveals he's wealthy but has been going around causing damage and being a public nuisance in pursuit of his cowboy hobby. The Bebop crew try to catch the Teddy Bomber at a masquerade party, but once again the cowboy nuisance interrupts and he escapes. Jet and Faye realize his obsessive, destructive behavior is quite similar to Spike, who vehemently disagrees. A final duel between Spike and the self-professed cowboy on top of a building results in Andy conceding his hat to the true space cowboy and becoming a samurai instead. While channel surfing, Jet spots Faye on TV as part of cult called Scratch. The leader of Scratch is Dr. Lons, whose promises of being able to digitize the soul to escape bodily desires resulted in about 100 suicides and disappearances. No one seems to be able to find the elderly leader of Scratch, and after receiving a cryptic video message from Faye, Spike is tasked to go find her while Jet and Ed follow one last lead in the form of a Scratch-made virtual reality game. With the surprising help of Ein, they find out that Dr. Lons never existed. He was a creation of a 13-year-old hacker in a vegetative state, using the life support machinery to gain some form of consciousness and con other people into becoming like him, a digital mind without a working body. On the way to Mars, Faye reroutes the Bebop to Earth, so she can look for landmarks she saw in the video recorded by her teenage self. Ed tags along with her and leads her to an orphanage where Ed once lived. The nun in charge gives Ed a picture of her father, who came looking for her a while ago. Faye and Ed find one of the locations in Faye's old video, and Faye is surprised by an old schoolmate. Jet and Spike receive information on a bounty which looks to have a lucrative payoff, but it turns out the bounty was fake, set by Ed herself on her father, Sinai's Hesap in Apple Deli, to find him. Ed's father asks if she wants to stay with him, but before Ed can answer, he and his assistant go after a meteorite strike, leaving Ed behind, dumbfounded. Faye finds only ruins where her home used to be and opts to sleep there. Ed leaves the Bebop and Ein goes with her. After the girls leave the Bebop, Spike and Jet drown their sorrows at a bar but get ambushed by members of the Red Dragon Syndicate. They are saved by Shin, brother of Spike's former subordinate Lin, who explains that after Vicious unsuccessfully tried to seize control of the organization, people connected to him are now being hunted down. Jet gets shot in the leg during the shootout, but a doctor removed the bullet and they head back to the Bebop. Faye crosses paths with Julia when she helps take out a car of men who were chasing her down. Julia knows Faye is in contact with Spike and asks her to relay a message to meet a predetermined place only they know. There are flashbacks of Spike trying to convince Julia to run, leave the syndicate with him and Vicious threatening Julia with the ultimatum of killing Spike or dying with him. Faye returns to the Bebop and wavers over delivering the message but ultimately tells Spike about Julia. The Bebop is under attack and after escaping in their smaller ships and trading fire with the attackers, Jet encourages Spike to go find what he's lost. Vicious is chained up, ready to face execution for his coup against the leaders of the syndicate when an explosive diversion helps him escape and with the help of double-crossing gang members, they overthrow the old guard and Vicious declares himself the sole power in the Red Dragon Syndicate. Spike meets Julia at the cemetery where she draws a gun and aims it at him. Reunited, Julia tells Spike about the threat she received from Vicious, but instead of killing Spike to spare herself, she chose to run away. She wants to pick up where they left off, but after finding Annie shot, Spike resolves to get revenge. Julia stays with him and they shoot their way out when Annie's store is swarmed by syndicate members. Julia gets shot and dies in Spike's arms. Jet, who was initially dismissive and angry at the trouble Spike brought him, goes looking for him but only finds ominous news. Spike returns to the Bebop to eat with Jet and share a laugh. He tells Jet that Julia died and shares some cryptic words with Faye when she tries to stop him from leaving, reminding him of what she told her about forgetting the past, and revealing that she got her memory back, but she found nowhere in her memories she could return to. Spike leaves a crying Faye to storm the Red Dragon's headquarters, memories of his past haunting him but not stopping him from shooting several members. Shin helps him part way through his shootout and tells him where to go to find Vicious before he gets shot and killed. Spike fights his way to the top floor of the Syndicate skyscraper where he and Vicious have one last battle. Trading blows and almost trading weapons, both get injured badly before Spike shoots Vicious in the chest and finally kills him. As Spike stumbles down a set of stairs and faces the remaining Syndicate members, he holds up his fingers in a gun shape and says, "Bang," before collapsing.